Hi, I'm Carla McNeil from Learning Matters, and this morning I'm here meeting with Carmel King from Southwell School. Carmel has been one of the teachers, or leaders actually in Carmel's case, who has trialled the Literacy Success Startup Assessment. And I have asked Carmel if she would take just 15 minutes of her busy schedule this morning to share with us how that's influenced her teaching practice and how that might influence her leadership going forward, and the difference, ultimately the difference that this has made for the students that she's working with. So hi Carmel. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy day today to chat with me. Can you just tell us a little bit about you perhaps and about your experience?
Okay, I've been teaching for 39 years, always in the primary sector, but most recently in about the last 15 years in the junior school. I've been a deputy principal of Year 06 in Auckland for 11 years, and now I'm Dean of Year 02 here at Southwell School. My passion is literacy, because for me, of my 3 children, I have 2 children that learned easily and are academics, and one child who, when I look back now and know what I know now, was probably slightly dyslexic and believed he couldn't learn and had a different outcome.
Oh, wow.
So it becomes quite passionate about children leaving school knowing that they can learn.
Okay, that's great. So I think it would be really useful if you tell us perhaps a little bit about what you have been using in the past to identify, I guess. I think for me, having been a school principal too, and having been in that same place potentially as you, and not, we've had all these different things going on, but I can speak for myself when I say I haven't known the why. I haven't known why these children haven't been able to, for example, achieve fluency in their reading. And I think now I know that. And I feel really confident and excited going forward for so many more people. So perhaps if you tell us a little bit about what you were using to try and determine things in the past.
Well, in the past, always, in New Zealand, there's never really been a program that's set that you go and assess new entrants with. So every school makes up their own. So it's always centred around an alphabet check, which is just name and sounds. Perhaps a few words from the essential list, some oral competency, but none of that gave you any indication as to why some children came in and started reading, in a normal reading program, and why some just stopped. And even, 15 years ago, I trained in read and recovery, and that again opened my eyes to why some children don't learn to read. But I still didn't understand some of the specific reasons why they weren't picking some things up. It was clear that they weren't reading, but it wasn't clear why were they not reading. They were getting the same alphabet every day. They were getting the same tuition as the whole of the rest of the class. But they appear to either have a memory problem or an auditory problem that, perhaps they're not hearing what I'm saying. But it was never really specific. And I think since starting with the LSSA assessment last year, what I've learned is that the most prominent thing for me is that so many children entering school have no idea how to isolate or blend sound. It's not a normal thing for a lot of children to know how to isolate me into m, e, even when they've been taught the sounds of m and e. They can't do that. So for me, it's been through the assessment of the LSA is finding where the gaps were. So we started by assessing every child that came into school, especially a group, which was my first group that I was monitoring. So of that group, when they first came in with the LSA, there was huge gaps in the entry assessment. Most children were able to rhyme to a certain degree. They were able to hear that there was a difference between man, or dog, bike. They could hear that. But when you came further down into isolating or blending syllables, virtually every child got 0 out of 6 for that, just no idea. So from there, we developed a program of just going, it was really simple, of just going through all of the specific targeted teaching areas that come out of the assessment and just teaching that skill for a whole week to the class. And that was just orally, it didn't take a lot of time or preparation. You just looked at the skill, and for 5 minutes before we started our alphabet work each day, we would just go through, say it was isolating syllables, and do that with the children orally. We did it for a week, and then we'd go on to the next skill. So at the end of 9 weeks, we'd covered all of those first 9 skills, and then I reassessed them for our assessment. And the exciting thing that came out of it was that virtually every child had plugged every single gap.
Wow.
There was 1 or 2 that still had 1 or 2 down, but I can see that's more about the fact that they were ESOL, and so there's a language barrier or something like that. But nearly there, but all of the other children, every gap had been filled. And that to me was exciting, because now they're all on the playing field of being able to look at books and sentences, because they can isolate sounds and they can put sounds together. So, that was the biggest excitement for me. I think what we're doing now is we've decided as a school to test every child that comes in. So part of my job is to test every new entrant when they come into school. And now I'm starting to assess the children further up the school in my syndicate that have still got
that have been identified. Yes, okay.
So I'm going to assess them to see where their gaps are now and go from there.
That's exciting. So what you're saying is you'll use the LSSA on school entry for every child, and then where you've got children who present as having difficulties making progress in literacy, then you'll go back and check.
I'll go back and check that. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. One of the things that I'm really excited to hear is how the assessment's been able to totally direct teaching and learning, both from a whole class perspective, and yes, it can definitely do that at intervention level. But I think one of the things is that, all schools, irrespective of their demographic, have limited funding.
Absolutely.
And so part of our purpose was to try to achieve that, to achieve teaching the teachers as they were finding out the why for the students. So based on what you've said, if we continue to achieve that, we will have
you'll be getting through so many schools and so many teachers. This is not information they're taught at Teachers College. I've got a lot of experienced teachers around me here at school, but again, it's new knowledge for them.
Yes.
So, that's the other thing, is we're setting syndicate meetings aside for the next 2 or 3 weeks to go over the assessment. I'll show them what to do, and so they can do it within their own class and follow them. We want to then follow them 6 months later and see if all of those gaps have been filled. But we've also developed a sheet for each child where we can, after we've done the assessment, where we can just mark off when we can see they've reached that milestone, so we can just keep going using the data to get their next steps for learning.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and it is. And that was easily done too.
Yes, And I think that's the thing going forward. We want this to be simple. We want it to be efficient so that teachers aren't feeling like that they have to take a long time.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to administer it?
Each test?
Yeah.
It probably takes me about, depending on the child, somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes per child.
Yeah.
Sometimes I split it up because not all 5-year-olds can sit still for 10 minutes. So sometimes I do about 15 minutes if it's someone who's a bit fidgety, and I might finish it off the next day when they're a little calmer. Yeah. But probably 30 to 40 minutes for each child.
And since working with you last year, we have tweaked parts of it. So, so we're hoping that it's going to be, our goal probably is to have it around the 25-minute mark,
that would be ideal.
so that it's more achievable in terms of efficiency of time. So that's fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to add, or if you were a beginning teacher coming in, what do you think would be important for those schools that have beginning teachers coming in, knowing that they haven't unfortunately had training potentially in structured literacy and don't understand those 5 principles, and particularly phonological awareness and alphabetic principle? What would sort of your advice be to them going forward?
Search it out. I think in the beginning, it's all about the relationship with the child. So get to know your child, and the way to get to know your students is by going deeper than what currently you have at your fingertips. So start looking for anything to do with LSSA, phonological awareness. Find some system that you can test them on that and assess what they are coming into school with, because they're not all coming in on a level playing field.
Yes.
You've got somewhere around 12 to sometimes 18 months difference with your new entrants as they begin school.
Yeah.
And you need to know that in the beginning. So yes, have PD on anything you can to do with phonetic awareness and really understand literacy from a pre-literacy level, rather than just, now they're reading. There's so much more before that.
Has this changed your outlook at all in terms of when we send books home from the get-go?
Oh, totally, yeah. Yeah, because it was every school's goal previous to this, and every child's goal when they start school, is that they must have a book to go home on the first night. Well, I mean, that's just setting a child up for failure. Yes. And what I hear now from parents is they'll come in after a few weeks and go, oh, my child needs to go up another level because they've learned that book off by heart.
Yes.
And that's where my heart drops, and I have to go through the whole, well, yeah, I know, but that's not reading. That means that they've learned the book. So now we don't send books home at the beginning. We assess them first, and we work out where they are. Sometimes we might send home a sentence that we've created together, and it might be, I am Chloe, or whatever.
I think what you're saying is that for you now, with this new knowledge on board and having experienced the use of the assessment in its entirety, is that you're in a position now where you can be so much more informed about that individual from the get-go.
Yes.
And it's about, totally not taking that wait to fail approach. Yeah. It's about how do we create a pathway where this child will be successful and guided right through.
Yeah. It's funny because one of my staff members said that to me the other day. She said, I'd really like to be like you, Carmel. You can talk to the parents and you know what you're talking about. Yeah. And I said, but this is what you're going to be too, because I'm going to teach you all this stuff.
Absolutely, it's exciting.
And she went, oh, yay. And I think that's from a teacher's point of view, knowing you have the knowledge to answer all the questions that the parents will come to with you for is empowering. You need to know this stuff if you're going to be teaching children.
So with your parents, Carmel, what do you sort of see in the future? Because I think, building that relationship with parents and in a way educating them nowhere near to the extent that we do, our teachers, but one of the things that I wonder about is what do we share? What should we share with those parents? And where they come in and they want their child, because that's what we did. We got a book on our first day, and we've grown up like that. So how might we go about sharing this information with the parents and educating them? If you think about your setting, what might be something?
Well, last year I introduced a parent literacy evening, but that was before I started LSA. So I'll do it again. It's planned for next term. But at this one, I will also go back to the pre-literacy stage and share with them some of the knowledge that children need to know before they learn to read, so that they understand, because I really want them to get the message that it's not about how many books they're reading at home, or whether the book is easy at home. It's none of that. They've got all of these pre-literacy foundations that have to be there in order for them to actually learn to read. And I want the parents to know that, and I don't want them to be doing it at home. I want them to know we're doing it at school, and we know what we're doing. So, just have some confidence and trust, and this is your bit, this is what you do at home, is make it fun and successful for your child at home.
Yeah.
And don't press them into reading books, when they're 5. It actually just stresses them.
Totally. And I think for them too, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Because with that knowledge, they have understanding, and then with that understanding comes acceptance too. I always liken a child's literacy journey to kind of like the Humpty wall, and I think, we put in these blocks, and sometimes I think with what I now know is that we've put in blocks kind of randomly all over the show, and then the walls crumbled. Whereas the approach that you're taking is more about being very structured and systematic with how you put those in, so that you create a solid platform, and then hopefully the wall won't crumble.
There's no gaps. Yeah, it's true scaffolding, really. It really is. It's done from the base, and you work up, and you've got a path to follow, which is wonderful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Great. Okay, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.